I'm Marcus.
I'm Jared.
And it has been so long. Jared, we have not, honest to goodness, sat down and discussed a game like a book club in so long. I have an idea. Let's review 50 games in a single episode.
That kind of seems like a lot.
You would think so, and you're right. But what if I told you those 50 games were under a single umbrella and you could buy all of them for one low price of a low price?
Yeah, it's $25, and I would say that's crazy. That sounds like a lot of value. That's like 50 cents a game.
Well, let's talk about it. Obviously, for the uninitiated, UFO 50 is a collection of retro-inspired classic NES, era games, 80s era games. There are 50 of them, and there's a lot of variety. And both of us have played, I would say, a fair amount of this game, and I've been, in general, really impressed.
Yeah, 45 hours for me. I don't know about you.
No way, that's crazy.
Yeah, quite a lot.
I want to hear where those hours are.
Well, I could pull open. What's nice is you can sort these games, and it'll show you which ones you've played the most. And I was surprised to see a particular one towards the top that I actually don't like much, and it's because I struggled to beat it, and so I played it a lot trying to beat it. So, but yes, no, yeah, UFO 50. It's only on Steam right now. They are planning on a console release eventually, but I had to get my hands on it. It sounds ambitious, and it is in practice. This game has been developed over the course of like 8 years, is what I heard. And it shows. They put a lot of thought into these. They are retro games, so as such, they're a little smaller in scope, but they're not like mini games. They're actually full games, like full. Imagine a collection of 50 NES games, but actually good, right? Like, because these are actually very polished and have a lot of modern gameplay conventions in mind. Yeah, my favorite thing is that they frame it as this like found footage kind of thing, or found game console thing. The developers are like, yeah, we unearthed this old system that no one remembers, and here we go, we're re-releasing 50 games that this fictional game developer made. And so there's kind of a narrative, because in the collection, some of the early games are a little more basic, but then over time you see this company grow, you see them choose a mascot based on what games sold well. You see their ambitions rise to the point where some of the later games kind of feel a little too ambitious, and it's quite lovely. That's what drew me in, was just the kind of that meta narrative behind the scenes, on top of the fact that these games are really fun and ahead of their time, so to speak, because they have modern conveniences and modern gameplay conventions in mind, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to talk about my top games, the ones I sunk the most time into. I will say that there are a couple of stinkers, but in a way that feels like it still adds to the product in a way. There are a couple where they take a big swing, and for me it's a miss, especially for some of these early games, which in the story of the game it's these are the earliest, the most basic. And in my opinion, the very first game, which I'm sure some people start with because they want to, start from the earliest game, is mind-numbingly slow and pretty unforgiving.
Yes, I played it enough to get the in-game achievement, and then I never touched it again. I'm like, I'm never getting back into this one. I want to. I think it's interesting that they included it, but yeah, it's rough. It's hard to get into that one for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting mix of what you said, modern gameplay conventions or kind of ideas, which is just awesome to see. But then there's also some I don't know what you call it, antiquity, so some things that you can tell it's an homage to those games. The main thing I think of is a lot of these games do not come with instructions or a tutorial. So you just have to click buttons and be like, oh, that's what that does. Sometimes to a hilarious degree. There were games that I played for 20 minutes before I realized what the point of it was.
Yeah, well, and that was something I thought I would hate about this. Something I don't like about playing old NES games is just kind of the lack of the game telling you how the systems work. Like, I feel like the original Zelda and original Metroid, you kind of need the manual in order to enjoy those games fully. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but in this collection, I actually really liked that discovery. There were some games that have entire mechanics that I didn't realize until I stumbled into them. And I realized, oh, you have to learn them as you play. You have to learn about those secret mechanics. And you can do that by just sitting on the title screen and then waiting for it to play a video of someone playing the game masterfully.
Sure.
And then can be like, oh, there's a technique I haven't discovered. Like, oh, that's how you interact with that thing. The discovery is fun with that. And also, like you said, it kind of adds to the fact that, you know, not all of these are going to be your favorite, but that's kind of the charm. Is like you're trying to you're weeding through these games, and not everyone's going to hit with you, but some are going to resonate, and that's kind of fun. One of the developers described it as like going to a friend's house, finding an old console, and then putting the cartridges in, not knowing anything about them. Right, all you get is like the label or the box art. And back then, that's all you had. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have trailers and, you know, magazines pouring over everything. So you knew everything before you even played the game. Back then, you really didn't know what you were getting. And this feels like it's emulating that experience. And I love that.
Absolutely. It's an experience that it's hard to get nowadays. But like playing a game and be like, oh, this is a, you know, fill in the blank, like a genre, like, oh, wait a minute, this is a tower defense game. Oh, this is an RTS. This is turn-based. There are games where I didn't know if it was going to be turn or live action when, like, there's a monster in front of me, and I didn't know until I initiated combat.
Right.
So, yeah, I do really like the discovery. Someone pointed out, I think it might have been someone on another podcast, talked about how games today, like app games today, hold your hand quite a bit. They want there to be absolutely no friction because they want to keep you there as long as possible. So it's really fascinating to have, with some of these games, what feels like the opposite experience, which is they don't care if you're there to stay or not. Like you said, it's a bit of work to get into some of them, but that's an experience I haven't had in a while. So that was part of the fun, part of the meta fun of it all.
Right. And I think that's something that's needed right now, because like you said, games just hold your hand so much. It's kind of refreshing to kind of have to figure it out as you go. And now, like you said, a lot of these are unforgiving. I haven't beaten very many of them at all. Like they're really hard. But as far as a pick up and play, you know, mentality goes, like this is so much fun, and I highly recommend it. So let's go into some of our absolute favorite games from the collection. I think we should both share 5 each, and even then, that's only going to be, you know, a max of 10 out of the 50. So there's still plenty to discover. And if someone already knows, they're already sold on it, they can stop listening to this and get it. But I think we should, you know, maybe in no particular order, share the games that resonated with us most.
Sure.
Does that sound good? Yeah,
I do have a top pick, but the other ones I'm happy to give in any order.
Well, let's save the top pick for last then.
Awesome. Do you want to go first? What's one of your top games?
Sure. One of my top games is actually a game I have not beaten yet, because it is very hard, but I really like it because it appeals to the board game sensibilities that I have. It's called Deviltion, and in it you have these cute little pilgrim people who are in a town full of devils, and you need to wipe out all of the devils in the town. The board is a grid, and the way you do it is by placing down explosives and little, I don't know what they are, effigies or something. I don't know, some religious thing. You're placing down things and trying to create a chain reaction, because you have a limited number of items, but there's several devils on the board. So you're trying to see, okay, how can I wipe out the most at once without hurting the pilgrims, and do it all by activating one chain reaction. And I find it really addicting. I think it's really fun to try and piece it together. You need to survive 10 levels. I've only survived 9 at a max, and yeah, it's brutal. But Really fun. And then something we didn't mention is that I love about UFO 50 is each one of these games has like a little fun fact about the fictional developer behind it. The fictional one for this game was banned from several game store chains because of its demon imagery on the box art. And we can't see what the box art is, but I thought that was kind of a funny way of looking at it. So, did you try Deviltion? What'd you think of it?
I did. I don't think I stuck with it long enough to really get hooked by it, but I got far enough to understand kind of the premise of it, which is to set up the chain reaction. So that's really cool. I have a game on my list that's also kind of a thinky game, like that feels kind of board game-ish, and it very well might be in your top 5 as well. Party House, which is, I believe you and I talked about it, and you described it as a bag builder type game. So like if you've ever played Quacks of Quedlinburg, where you're adding tokens into a bag and then you draw them out and you try not to bust, that is the central mechanic of this game. But the way it's skinned is you are using your popularity to invite different people to a party to create the best party possible. And you can use your popularity to also help you get money to make your house bigger. And you're inviting people one at a time into your house. But the problem is, if you invite 3 people that are too rowdy, the cops come and the party is over, which is a very funny, clever device, especially when the people individually are like an introvert. You know, if you invite them to your party, you'll get more points if your house is empty.
That's right. It's so good at the thematics. Like, if you have a monkey, like, it causes trouble. The cops are more likely to come the more monkeys you have, but
it's an awesome party.
But the party, I mean, the popularity you gain from the party for having a monkey there is off the chain or whatever. Through the roof, because it's like, all right, but you don't want to let too many in, so it's like, who brought the monkey? And maybe you have to use your usher person to kick them out, or have a therapist come in and remove trouble from the monkey. It's just, I would describe these things to my wife and be like, dang it, I got another monkey, I hope I get a therapist. Or, oh no, the celebrity, they brought 2 of their people with them, I hope it doesn't cause too much trouble. No, the cops showed up. It's so fun. And you and I have talked about like good themes for board games, and sometimes those are really hard to nail. I think they did it perfectly here. The goal of each scenario is to get some mythical figure there, to get so popular that a leprechaun appears, or so popular or an alien comes to your party, right?
Right.
Just delightful.
Yeah, and it's an example of a game that is like so fully fleshed out, such a unique idea that it really could stand on its own and we might still be talking about it. Like, I think of the game Luck Be a Landlord, which is, I think, a similar scope and like $5, but it's just crazy that this is a part of 50 games and still solid on its own.
Absolutely. If this released as like a mobile game, I'd be all over it. I'd think it's amazing. And it is something that can be controlled with only 2 buttons, so it could conceivably have come out during the NES, even though, this was not the type of game people were making back then, right? Mm-hmm. So, pretty cool. Well, my next pick is a game called Camoflouge, and it is a game where you play as a little chameleon, and the best way to describe it is a stealth puzzle game. Basically, any tile that you stand on, you can change your color to match the tile. If you stand on another tile that is in view of a predator, like a frog or alligator, it might come over and eat you if you're not matching the color of that tile. So the game becomes, okay, how can I find a tile that's not in sight, change to the color, and then find a way to navigate around the predators and escape? I really liked it because it's a very short, concise experience. I beat all the levels, 100% of the game actually really, really quick. So that I was able to just basically sit back and look at it all as a single package and be like, yeah, that was actually really well designed. And that's a lot for me because a lot of puzzle games I kind of just give up on early. Like games like Baba's You and things like that are just, they get too brain busty for me. And this one was just kind of short and sweet and delightful, and I liked it.
That's awesome. I thought this was really clever, but I did not finish it. I did think it got pretty hard, so I am impressed that you enjoyed it enough to get all the way through. That's awesome.
Yeah. I also like that the fact for this game is that it's based on an unpublished children's book that one of the developers' moms wrote. I think that's really sweet. I think that's really fun. What a cool way to think about the game, as for the bonus fact.
Yeah.
What's your next one?
Next I have Porgy. Porgy, do you remember this one, Jared?
Oh yes.
Awesome. You play as a little submarine with big, cute eyes, and it is an exploration game with the loop of you go out with a limited fuel tank, get more fuel, go back to your base, and then you can go further because you have more fuel. And you're exploring this big underwater world with a lot of little creatures that want to kill you. And I think the cool thing about this game is the loop is really satisfying, but then also there are these giant creatures like a big shark, a big octopus, that will occasionally appear in random locations. So it makes this game, as you're returning back, almost a horror game, because you're like, oh gosh, I hope that the shark doesn't show up. I hope the shark doesn't show up. I'm really low on my tank, and whenever something attacks you, your tank drops down. So since everything you grab, you have to take it all the way to the base, it makes it nerve-wracking that you might run into one of the big things wandering the world.
So did you complete this game yet?
No, did you?
No. I don't want to say I'm stuck, but it's pretty unforgiving.
Yeah.
But the loop, like you said, is really great. I love that concept of diving as deep as you can, but making sure you have just enough air to make it back. I think that's been done before. Like I love Dave the Diver, for example, and that's a mechanic in that game. But yeah, I am a little stuck. So maybe you can give me some pointers after the show and tell me what direction to go, because it can be brutal sometimes.
Yeah, I didn't say I was good at this game. I think it's just worth playing.
Definitely one of the best in the collection. I have to agree with you there. One thing that's really fun about looking at all the reviews for UFO 50 that are out there is I've noticed a lot of them will also spotlight a couple games, and it's interesting that they're usually different for every single review. And of course they are, because there's 50 really good games. But it's interesting too to see what resonates with other people that doesn't resonate with me, for example. Because I didn't love the RPGs. I didn't love the turn-based RPGs of this collection. I'm probably not gonna play through those, but I like the really, really simple ones. So I don't know how many lists this next one is actually on for other people, but one of the first games I played that I just ended up absolutely loving is called The Big Bell Race, and it's a spin-off of another series in the collection called Campanella. That's the mascot that they use for UFO Soft, the company. And most of those games you fly a little UFO around. This one is basically a racing spin-off. So there's 8 UFOs all flying in a little sort of top-down, I guess side-scroller is the better way to say it, but a map that you're supposed to loop around. You can get power-ups, you can swipe at each other as you go. Really, really simple. There's only 8 races, but I really loved it. It kind of reminded me of Top Ride, which was a mode in Kirby Air Ride. Just a really fun, you see the whole map there, and you're messing with each other as you go. I love stuff like that. I love kind of multiplayer, fun
diversions.
Yeah, a fun little diversion.
Awesome. Another one I have on my list is Rock On Island. This game, it was really funny. This is one of the ones where I really missed the point for the first little bit of playing it. I had no clue that it looked like a tower defense game, but I was like, oh, maybe you don't build towers. Maybe you just attack by yourself. I'm like, this game is stupid hard. And then I realized, yes, you can build towers, or cavemen in this instance, to fight the oncoming dinosaurs. But it's just a fun, classic tower defense game. I guess the twist, if there was one, is the fact that you are a person on the map and you can also attack. And the way that you attack, it kind of suits you well to pick a spot, attack, and then move to another spot and stay there for a second. So it's like you're a mobile tower yourself. And I just like tower defense games. In some ways, it's kind of a demake in a way. Other tower defense games will have a lot more mechanics or variability in like the towers you can build here. But this is kind of just boiled down to its core. I don't know when the earliest tower defense game was. Maybe there was one in the NES era, but it's definitely cool to kind of have just the most basic parts in this game.
That's a good way of looking at it, because they really committed to the bit of only having 2 buttons, right? A D-pad and 2 buttons. And some of the games use that in a really weird way, where they're like, what if, back then, games weren't fully set in stone. What if we did this kind of control scheme that's like extremely weird and really hard to rewire your brain and use, but it makes sense.
Hello, Mooncat.
Yeah, so I'm referring to Mooncat specifically, which I really did like and I did beat, but
oh wow,
not one of my top 5. But yeah, no, I have played all 50 games, or rather I have sampled all of them. Some of them I've put so many hours into. Some I have barely touched, and Rock on Island I've barely touched. I think I've done the tutorial level and that's it. But I really want to play it more, for sure. It looks excellent.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a tip, which is instead of building towers in the first couple of levels, upgrade your own weapon first and become a weapon of mass destruction, and then add cavemen to supplement. Just a little strategy tip.
That's a good tip. I'll try that. I will do that. My next game is called Rail Heist. Is this on your list?
It's not on my list, but it almost was. I didn't spend a ton of time with it, but I could tell it was like a really strong game.
That's the thing. Like I said, like there's so many games you kind of have to just sample and then find the ones that you like and then save others for later. I think we're going to be playing this game for a long time. But Rail Heist is, I guess to put it simply, it is a train robbery immersive sim, which sounds weird to say on an NES style game, but it really is an immersive sim in that you have a lot of options in how you approach each heist. Some of them do like suggest a very specific solution, but some you just kind of figure it out as you go. So you can punch through walls, so you can like start breaking up walls to like make your own tunnels and holes through the train to try and get to the loot. Or you can shoot, but that'll alert the guards, and then it suddenly takes on like a turn-based mechanic where you're frozen in place and they have 10 seconds to try and find you. And then you keep going and you have 10 seconds to move and stuff like that. You can throw crates at enemies, you can stack things and jump on top of them. The game gives you a lot of different options, and I think that's kind of fun. It's hard. I haven't made it through very far in the game. I think I've only done 7 or 8 of the 20 levels, but I think it's just kind of cool to see, almost like you said, like a demake of what an immersive sim today would be. And it's really well polished, which is really cool. There's a lot of mechanics, a lot of movement options. Perhaps most importantly, I love that it's a train heist. I mean, that is a cowboy train heist is right up my alley. It's so fun, and I laugh almost every time you get the loot, because when you do, your horse and your desperado friend appear, and your horse is blue, and his name is Mr. Blue. And it just every time you get the loot, there's like a big caption a big title at the top that says "Get on Mr. Blue," and I don't know why that tickles me for some reason.
That's awesome. Next in my top 5, Attactics. Attactics is a tactics game. And specifically, so you have two, it's kind of 2-player. It's either you versus the machine or you versus 2-player, which we haven't even talked about that a lot of these games are 2-player, which
half
is awesome.
Of them.
Couch
half
co-op,
of them have multiplayer. It's amazing.
which is awesome. But yeah, so this is a turn-based strategy game, sort of. It's kind of an RTS because essentially you move around these little units, and then every 3 to 5 seconds they move forward, they march forward, and the strategy is which column on this kind of chessboard-like thing you're putting your little units in. So do you put your spearman in front of your guy with a shield? Do you put your guy that blows up next to your other people or not? So you're moving these units that auto move forward, but you're kind of changing the arrangement of them. And it's a bit frenetic because you don't have much time to do that, but it's really fun. And another one that's really well fleshed out. I think I've gotten through 19 levels of the campaign, and it introduces concept gradually in a fun way. So yeah, it's a good 2-player game as well. It's a good strategy game.
It's kind of an auto battler in a way. I don't know if you already said that, but you can't control the units except to move them backward. So positioning is everything. Responding to your opponent's moves in real time is kind of the core hook, and that's a fun one for sure. That's one of the few that I have cherried. So basically, if you beat a game, it becomes a gold cartridge on your menu. But if you do an extra requirement, usually like 100%ing it or something similar, you get a cherry cartridge. And Attactics is one of my cherries because it's just so dang fun. So we've reached our top favorite. Is that right? I think we've both shared 4 so far. Cool. Well, mine is kind of special in that the first time I ever played it was in 2-player with you.
Aww.
I had not played this game yet, but you introduced me to it because you had just started playing UFO 50, and you're like, ooh, let's do this one. I like this one. And I had not touched that one yet. I had kind of picked and sampled various ones, but I was still missing a few that I hadn't tried yet, and this was one of them. And right now, it's my favorite of the collection, and that is Hyper Contender. All of these, it's really fun to try and figure out how to describe them, because I think they do really good jobs of genre blending, right? This one's kind of like a platform arena fighter, if that makes sense. It's like Smash Bros, where you're in a room, you choose a character, and you're trying to collect the most rings by hitting each other and by jumping for the rings when they appear. And the hook, the thing that makes this game so fun, is that every single character moves and attacks completely differently. There's only one character that jumps and double jumps. The rest of them, one of them flies, one of them hovers, one of them uses a grappling hook, one of them uses an elevator, one of them charges up a hop, and the list goes on. Oh, one reverses gravity. Can't forget that. So I love that there's so much diversity. It's really hard to switch characters in this game and get used to a completely different moveset. But it's also really rewarding when you start to recognize how they all move, because then you're able to face your opponent more easily when you know exactly, oh, this one only shoots diagonally. I don't want to be in their diagonal radius, right? So thank you for sharing this game with me, Marcus. I really, really like it.
That's awesome. I love the asymmetrical movesets. It reminds me, I think, the most of Shovel Knight Treasure Trove has a PvP version.
Yes.
Where you can play different bosses, and everyone has a different moveset. This is like a boiled down version of that.
Yeah, basically,
so,
yeah.
Awesome. You're making me want to play it.
I want to play it with you again. That was just so fun. Yeah. What is your top game, Marcus? I have a feeling I know what it is.
Yes, I think you might. On the last row, one of the last games in the meta-narrative is a game called Minnie and Max, where you play as a little girl who is locked in a closet by her older sister, presumably to have a party or something in the living room. And she decides to play a game where she imagines that she can shrink down. So you start in this room that it only takes up like a part of the screen because it's just so small. You can only walk a couple steps, you can hop on the bookshelf, and that's about it. But then you can shrink down and you can walk through the carpet as if it's a vast field. You can go into the pots of plants and they're like a forest. You can meet the bug people that are fighting a war. You can go to the top shelf and find mold growing because of a water drip. It is truly sprawling. And there's a moment that takes even a step further, which I would definitely say at this point, if you haven't played this game, but you want to, stop listening. So you get to shrink down another level. So like it's already incredibly like, wow, there's so much in this room. But then you can even shrink down to like a molecular level. which is absolutely crazy.
That's really cool. So what grabbed you about this game? Because you said that you and your wife played it all the way through. That like you played it for like 10 hours or something. Like what was it that made you both like it so much? Like what was the thing that made it so much better than the other games?
I wouldn't say it's so much better. It's just the one that hooked us. And I think because of the sense of discovery, the same thing we were talking about in all of these games, I think our experience was definitely indicative of that in this. Because the world is counterintuitively so big, we kept on stumbling on interesting side quests or new items or mechanics or realizations of, oh, hold on, we could have done this the whole time. That made for a fun RPG experience, but it wasn't, again, something that held our hand. It was, we had to decide, okay, should we work on this or should we work on this? And a lot of times we had to basically solve mysteries. Like someone has referred to a character and we have to find them, and using logic, we could find them. So
Wow.
There were just enough mysteries that were really compelling. And we kept on getting to feel clever. We kept on getting to be like, hold on, I wonder if this would work. Kind of like Tears of the Kingdom almost. It was, anyway, maybe not quite that. But, it like things where we got to try stuff out and realize that it worked. And that was a lot of fun.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, no, I actually had no idea. I had no idea that it had that amount of depth. Because of the little I've played, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, you shrink down, you collect things, and you're trying to collect them so that you can unlock the door. Like, I thought that was it. I didn't realize that the scope and the puzzles had that much depth to them. That's pretty crazy. I'm excited to get back into it.
Yeah, let me know what you think. I might be overselling it, but that's just what our experience was. We really enjoyed it.
Cool. Definitely will do that. And so, yeah, so to anyone who has a Steam account that sounds like this game might be up their alley, again, it's $25. It's really, really generous, to be honest. How much bang for your buck you get. Like I said, I've played like 45 hours. Doesn't even feel like it. And there's still so much I've barely touched in the collection. Not every game is going to totally land with you, but you might be surprised how many games you try that do end up landing with you. Definitely something that I think people will be talking about for a long time. I think it's going to be a game that is worth examining when it comes to talking about game collections in general that are released these days. And also just talking about sheer ambition when it comes to indies. I think this is probably one of the biggest, most ambitious indies we've seen for quite a while. So, yeah, give it a look.
Awesome. Well, we did it. We reviewed all 50. If you listen back, we definitely talked about every single game of UFO 50.
I think a fifth of them is still plenty. This went on for way longer than I expected. So
yeah,
it's a lot of ground to cover. But yeah, there's 40 games we didn't talk about, so go experience them yourself if you'd like.
We got to play some more UFO 50 together, though.
Yes, most of my experience has been single player. I've only done multiplayer the one time with you, so let's for sure do that. Until next time, I'm Jared.
I'm Marcus.
And we'll level with you then.